Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, Hegfreeze here. Today I am bringing you 3 awesome entitled parent stories. Keywords include mental problems, throat pain, and Harry Potter theme park. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy the stories. Dad thinks he's entitled to my mother's love, almost chokes her to death over it. I wish this was just a fake story. I really freaking wish this was just a joke, but it is not. This will be a long one, so please bear with me. ED, dad. My own psychopathic dad. M, mom. Mom. LB, brother, little brother. Me. So, there will need to be a little background to understand this situation. My dad was raised borderline religiously and was indoctrinated by his parents into a completely patriarchic belief. This resulted in him spiraling out of control once he got married to my mother. From the day I was born, he went on everything he had no control over and began emotionally and physically abusing all of us since I was 6. He would always tell me and my brother, "As your dad, I am your god. You do as I say or you have no life to do anything with," and other ridiculous doctrinating teachings he was obsessed over. He started abusing my brother since he was 4, as I said when I was 6, since my brother was 2 years younger when it all began. He made my mother almost commit suicide twice, and one time she did actually attempt it, but survived because at that time we lived minutes away from a hospital and they were able to save her in time. Basically, he tried to make sure all 3 of us were either obedient slaves or dead. So, things escalated continuously and sometimes to the extreme for over a decade. At the time of this particular incident, I was 16 and my younger brother was 14. My parents had separated because my dad cheated on my mom, but out of fear for her well-being, she refused the divorce knowing how my dad can be. They agreed to live as neighbors, so me and my brother aren't as far away from one another and could still meet both parents. What they didn't know is that we both absolutely hated our dad for all the crap he did to us since we spoke our first words. But my brother, being the absolute freaking hero he is, willingly went with dad to prevent a court case over who gets custody of which kid. Now, the separation was also meant to be a breakup, but my dad didn't get this through his head. My mom by that time met a new person who she liked from the start. Only problem was that he lived about 1000 kilometers, roughly 600 something miles, away from our location, so it was a long distance relationship. The knowledge of his existence will be important. As I visited my brother on one day, deep into the summer, middle of July, somewhere right before my birthday, I let it slip that my mom had a new love interest. My dad coincidentally was walking out of the kitchen after preparing dinner for my brother and overheard us. Now, there were particularly 2 things my dad saw wrong with this. To understand them both, I need to give some information away. Our family is of Bosnian origin. Any person with interest in history of the Balkan regions will know that Bosnians have a near fanatic hatred for Serbians, which is what my mother's new boyfriend's nationality was. So my dad felt pretty betrayed in his nationalism. And the second problem was, as the title says, that he didn't understand that it was over between them on a romantical basis. When he barged into the room and told me to tell my mom to visit him the next day, I immediately knew I messed up. I messed up big time. The next day ensues. I remember this day very well, down to any logical detail, because it will be engraved into my memory forever as both the day I lost my crap the worst ever and the day that kickstarted my family's freedom from this complete psychopath. It was around 4 p.m. afternoon. My mom got ready to go over. He requested she come alone and she had to beg me for almost an hour not to go with her. I had a horrible feeling about it, and oh boy if I only knew how right I was. So she leaves the house, I wait. 30 minutes pass, nothing. An hour passes, nothing. Almost 2 hours later, I hear the familiar clipping of our obnoxiously loud door lock and hear small footsteps. However, I also heard sobbing. I ran to the door and saw my mom was crying her eyes out in a way I had never seen before, and her eyes were puffy, meaning she was crying for quite a bit at that point. I immediately closed the door behind her and hugged her, asking what happened, so she tells me the entire incident from the moment she arrived at his door. She told me how from the moment she arrived he was outright hostile with his words and would frequently insult her while dragging the conversation out. He didn't immediately confront her about her new love interest, but spun things around by first trying to question everything about how she was raising me, how we are doing as a family, and if we are even earning enough without his income. That went on for about the first hour. Then he dropped the bomb and asked her, and I phrased word for word, "Who's the Serbian traitor you are cheating on me with?" I repeat, I kid you not, this was his sentence word for word. My mom was flabbergasted, completely caught off guard by my dad knowing about her new love interest. However, she then tried to explain to him that they split up because he cheated, so it was over between them. That did not sit well with my dad at all. He went for her, pinned her against his work desk and showed her by pressing his thumb at a small spot next to her Adam's apple, pressing directly against her windpipe. My mom managed to let out one scream which my brother heard. He rushed out and saw what my dad did. This caused my dad to stop. My mom took the chance and left his place as fast as she possibly could. My brother confirmed later that my mom literally ran out of there and banged her shoulder against the door because of it, leaving a small bruise. I was livid. I had never known I could feel this level of anger. I immediately grabbed my phone and called everything. I was fed up with this piece of crap that seeded my mom 2 times. At this moment, I had decided that even if he kills all 3 of us, he would go down as well. I tell my mom to sit and calm down, eat some sweets, drink something and open some cute cat videos for her on her laptop. While she was mentally recovering through cute kitties and almost my entire reserve of chocolate, I called the police, I notified the lawyer and informed Swiss Child Protective Services and Domestic Abuse Victim Protection. We live in Switzerland and have services specifically dedicated to all manners and forms of victims of domestic abuse. As I said before, I called everything. However, since I called Child Protective Services first, they notified the police before I could act. And since Child Protective Services here like to do things very thorough, they couldn't act immediately. Now, I made a second big mistake, which however later ended up in our favor. I texted my brother about my action. Now, my dad was a little on the edge because he knew he screwed up by trying to choke her, and when my brother got an SMS, he got paranoid and took his phone to read my message. The next day, he arrives with my brother at 5 AM in the morning, bursts into our house and keeps us all within our living room, forbidding us from doing anything. If we wanted to go to the toilet, well, freaking sucks. Pee and crap on the floor in front of everyone. I got a call from Child Protective Services and convinced my dad that they will burst in with a full unit if I am not allowed to talk to them in private, so he did allow me to leave the living room to call them back. When I did, I informed them that we were more or less being held hostage in the living room and they went wild. They actually sent 3 fully armed squads to our place, and I mean fully armed, full automatic rifles, tactical gear, and 2 officers even had tear gas grenades equipped. My dad heard the police sirens. Pretty much everyone did at this point, so he quickly let us all go and disappeared back to his apartment. However, the police wasn't gonna let him go that fast. They cuffed him and escorted him. There were 12 fully armed officers there, taking him in as if they busted some national drug lord. After he was taken in, they inspected his apartment while me, my brother and my mother were questioned about it. They found quite a lot of crap, like an unregistered shotgun which was traced back as his weapon of choice during the service in the War of Yugoslavia over 20 years ago. However, they did find no ammunition for the weapon. They also found a printed bill of over 1,000 Swiss francs, which was used to pay my mother's new love interest so he would not speak in her favor in any way, should he ever be relevant to any court cases to come. We all confessed on the attempted murder by strangulation. My mom demanded a divorce and I tell the police everything. How he physically abused me and my brother until we had scars since we were 6 and 4 respectively. How he emotionally abused my mother to the brink of complete mental breakdowns. I told them how he made my mom nearly commit suicide 2 times and actually got her to try it once. Police officers took him into custody for a few weeks, and when he was let out we got protection from the state and we were moved away for 2 weeks far away from our city and returned once he had restriction order for all 3 of us. My mother got full custody of my brother and we sued the bastard for just about anything we possibly could. My dad did not like the fact that he was losing. He went full ED, saying how he deserves control over the family since he was the family father, continuously said how the justice system was biased in favor of my mom, and, I kid you not, called it a matriarch conspiracy, and on every court session would ask my mom at least once how much she paid the judges to rule in her favor. However, we only managed to get him trialed for attempted murder and illegal possession of a firearm as well as stalking and threats on our lives. The stalking part. My father stalked my little brother because he found out he had some unruly and bad friends. Worth noting, I warned him about those since I first knew his friends, and my father would always beat me to a bloody pulp, saying how my little brother would never do stuff like weed, how he unlike me is not a failure of a son, etc. So he threatened my mother with a very choking he ended up trying if she did not take responsibility for my little brother's circle of friends. I remind you, my little brother was in my father's custody and therefore his piece of work, not my mother's. The charges for abuse on minors, domestic physical violence and domestic mental abuse, violation of human rights. He abused us in ways that actually broke articles from the Human Rights Act, slander and finance fraud. He refused to pay child support. Were all dropped because my brother, sadly, was successfully guilt-tripped in being a family destroyer and intentionally spoke in opposition to everything me and my mother said. Since he and I were the victims of those dropped charges, it was my word against his words, and the judges had no choice but to drop the charges despite evidence being on both my and my brother's body in regards to domestic violence. We had marks, scars and bruises that lasted months, and the police got plenty of pictures of it. He was charged with 6 months in prison and 2 years of house arrest afterwards, got a restriction order to not come within 250 meters of any of us, lost any visitation rights, and he lost any right to ever request Swiss citizenship, meaning he can only have foreign passports for the rest of his life and needs to travel to Bosnia just to renew it. My mother never fully recovered from how little he was punished for. She became paranoid and would always see him in everything that didn't go in her favor, thinking he was sabotaging her life. In a twisted way, she became entitled too, but unlike any other cases, she's entitled out of fear and not egomaniac pride. He did leave lasting damage on me as well. I was sent to therapy right after he was sentenced and was diagnosed with chronic social phobia and social behavioral disorders. In other words, I am a full-blown sociopath who has permanently lost any ability to bond with other people person to person. Because of how horribly he mistreated me and always punished me by locking me into my room, I grew incredibly distant to any meaning and memory of human interactions and will spend my entire life as a lonely liar, since I have to fake plenty of human interactions like expressions of worry to get away from situations. My brother did manage to break free from the influence of my father, but only after he intentionally got my brother dropped out of school. He basically destroyed my brother's entire future and told him in his face, "I did what's best for you." They haven't spoken in almost 2 years now. Sadly, there isn't a big happy end, but at least the worst is behind us. Entitled mom thinks that her son should be able to skip the line at the wizarding world of Harry Potter. This happened yesterday. We are on spring break in Florida and we spent a day at Universal. Of course, the main attractions are the Harry Potter themed sections, which were super packed. Anyway, we did the whole one thing for our sons and went to seek out the places you can use them to cast spells. These weren't hard to find yesterday because each one had the line of about 7 to 10 wand holders waiting for their turn. We were at one in Diagon Alley where rain will start to fall from a suspended umbrella, and my sons were next in line, when up walks this kid in a full Gryffindor robe. He cuts off my 8-year-old when it was about to be his turn after waiting 10 minutes for it to be, and starts trying to cast the spell. My son said, there is a line and I was next? The kid, probably around 12 to 13, glared at my son and says, "I just wanted to try it." Which then prompted my older son, 11, to say, "Well, so do we, that's why we waited." Gryffindor stomps over to his mom standing nearby and I am within earshot and says, "Those boys won't let me have a turn, I want to try it." EM then stomps over to my 8-year-old casting the spell, grabs his $52 wand and says, "You've had your turn, it's his now." Meanwhile, there are 9 other kids behind mine in line. My kid welled up with tears and was about to lose it when the assigned witch working there finally noticed what was going on and intervened. She pointed to the line, said that they needed to wait as wizards were orderly when it came to spell casting, and asked her to step away and give my son his wand back. She rolled her eyes, let out an audible "ah" and stormed off with her kid. The working witch followed up by shouting, "Oh, and you may need to stop by the Quidditch shop and get new robes. He's definitely a Slytherin." Entitled grandmother shames me for having throat pain, then locks me in her car. "Hi everyone, this just happened to me about an hour ago, and I couldn't help to post it here. I'm on mobile, so sorry for any mistakes. GM, grandmother, M, mother, me, some guy I met on the street. Our story begins on my school day. As I mentioned, I currently have a very big throat pain. I'm guessing I got it because of the cold winds here. I would have stayed home because of the severity, but I had a very important test to do. My lessons ended an hour short as the teacher had also called in sick, and my boss didn't come until 2 hours later, so I called them to pick me up. She said she couldn't, and that my GM was near my school so she could pick me up. Keep in mind, my school is 15 kilometers away from my house, so walking was not an option. My GM agreed to pick me up, and only then did she find out I have throat pains.
It's those damn vaccines! That's why you have all these pains, that is why you are always sick!
I didn't know what to say, so I just had to stand her for the remainder of the trip. She then attempted to make me speak, by making small talk in a very rude way. Stuff like,
"Nice weather, huh? Too bad you can't go outside."
That's when she drove up to a supermarket, told me to wait in her car, drove to exactly where the sun was shining, and parked her car. She then left, locked her car, and went in. At that point, I had enough. I called them, told her what happened, and she came to my rescue immediately. She went in the supermarket, demanded GM to open the doors, and began ruthlessly shaming her for what she did. Then I got home and had some cake. Alright guys, that was everything I had for today. I will be back tomorrow with more fresh stories. Also, don't forget to leave a like if you have enjoyed the video and subscribe. Have a nice day.